Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chingonas y Chisme. And I always say I have a special guest, but I mean, every guest is special. Yeah, we have special guests, plural. So I am back with the amazing Ari, and
My
thank
dog.
you for joining. Yes. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay.
So, yes, welcome, Ari. Would you like to introduce our other special guest?
Yes, this special guest is my daughter, Tla. Hello. Hello.
Yes. And we are here today to talk about children in ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we got on here, everyone's energy was a little like, "Woo." So I'm just going to do this thing so we can kind of get settled in a little bit more. And so, if we could just kind of close our eyes for a moment and let's just take a breath and let's think about why we're here with the intention that we're here for, and that we just want to appreciate everyone who came before us, everyone who will come after us, the medicine ceremonies that hold us and guide us. Oh, all right.
All right. And you can probably hear my snoring dog
I love it.
because she had to be on the couch with me.
Of course.
Sorry, babe. She's not supposed to be on the couch. But he doesn't, I don't think he watches, so no, I'm kidding.
Maybe one day.
And my luck, he'll end up be like, oh, yeah, so I watched the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So in discussions like that we've had, ceremony has come up a lot. And while visiting you in your home, I got to know more about how you have been involved with ceremony for so many years and how your beautiful children have also been involved with ceremony. And so I wanted to talk about that because I have children. I've talked about it before. I have 4 children, one of which is your age. and a little older, and then 2 that are younger. And so, it's been something that's been on my mind to like how to talk about that and maybe when to introduce them or what that looks like. And if there's ever any moments where like you were felt unsure or like a little scared or just all the things. All the things.
So I came to ceremonies, and when I talk about ceremony, we are an Aztec spirit dancers, danzantes. So we have ceremony for different, like Tonantzin, the Virgen de Guadalupe, otherwise Tonantzin. We have muertos. We have ceremony for the young women, the young men, Shilonen, Jaguares, with all other ceremonies. But those are kind of like the main ones. And so I started about 21 years ago.
Mm.
And I started dancing with a group with my jefa, Cristina Mariscal, with Grupo Cuatonal.
Mm.
And I've always been with them. And so, like I've said, I was also asked to be a smoke holder. So I am a samadora as well. So I carry the smoke for the group and for ceremonies. Yeah, and so my hepa, Christina, she is a sister to me, and she's taught me a lot.
Mm.
And so when I came to the circle, my son was 9 months old, and I went to a ceremony and I saw danza, and I thought, oh my gosh, I found my people. I found something, because I had been looking for something, right? And so their dad said, "Oh yeah, this is danza," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is it," and it really resonated with the way I wanted to lead my life, and had been leading my life, but needed a lot more guidance through that.
Mm.
Um, and so that's what danza um, has helped me with. And it's helped me with a lot of things through, when their father and I were getting separated, our circle really supported us. And with any passing, the circle has always been there. Anything that you need, the circle is really there. It's really all about community support. We don't always like each other, but at the end of the day, that is like life, right?
Yeah.
And, Christina will always say the circle is like life. It brings you the good, the bad, the ugly. It brings you everything, right?
Right.
So, in that way, it's really beautiful to raise your children in that way, because they already have their tios and tias and cousins. I think for a long time, you know, because they grew up and there was probably, I don't even know, it seemed like 30 children all growing up at the same age. But they all, have called each other's cousins.
Mm.
For a long time, they all thought they were like blood related.
I had no idea. I never put it together.
Until, I don't know, middle school, something happened and they're like, wait a minute. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they are such a close knit, um, it's more than just friends or family. So yeah, so I raised them under danza, and to learn what it meant to be in ceremony, what to do in ceremony. Yeah. What what's your take on growing up that way? Because they were actually born under. They've known nothing else.
Mm.
So
Just the entire take of. Do we have specific questions?
Well, okay. So, yeah, let's go with what is your first memory of ceremony?
Oh wow, it's a trip. I never thought of that. I don't. I think it's it's more like just no distinct memories. It's just kind of being in a. I feel like it's more sounds that I remember.
Mm.
Like when I hear the the what are the songs called?
the alabanzas.
The alabanzas. That for me is that hits me in a place that's visceral. Like I get sleepy because when we were in ceremony, we would pack our bags, we pack our sleeping bags, our snacks, and then you do velacion for a little bit as a kid, and then you sing, and you're with your parents, but after a while they tell you to go to sleep because they're singing all night. So you're okay. So you snuggle up with your cousins, but falling asleep to a room full of 100 people singing songs that are
Mm.
I don't even know. It's just I think that is my earliest memory, and even still now, I get sleepy when I'm in a room full of people because I'm like noise. But
No.
it's the sounds and the smells that for me are my earliest memories. Like the smell of leather and sweat and smoke. That makes me that. I don't know. That just hits me differently. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because for a long time, when they were all little, they were held,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
Dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in the circle, or they were next to the drum, or they were with their tias being taken care of, so that we can dance, or we would take turns. So you can imagine like having, about 4 or 5 women and having all these babies, and we all just took turns taking care of them, you know, through ceremony, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that must have been an amazing kind of thing, because that's
Yeah.
so unusual.
It was. It was never a point where I didn't feel safe, and it's very rare where you step. It's very rare where you step into a room full of many people you do not know, hundreds of people, and you feel completely safe and secure. And it's not like I knew everyone. Like, oh, okay, they're all safe, but it's like I know in this community I'm taken care of
Mm.
and I'm held by everyone.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like my first ceremony memory, it's sensations. Yeah, like I remember feeling like the grass on my feet and feeling prickly and being like, oh, that feels weird. And I remember like hearing the drums and being like, wow, that's so loud, but I'm gonna sit next to them because I don't want to dance anymore. um, or just getting ready. I remember a lot of getting ready.
Mm.
Putting on dots and putting on my stuff, and mommy being like, "Did you have that? Do you have that? Remember that?" And I'm like, "Yes, I got it. I got it. I got it." So it's kind of the anticipation because um, I know you used to get way more nervous, especially when I was younger, to, to be in ceremony. So it was a little bit like doing things. It's happening,
Yeah.
but it's more emotions and sensations that I remember a lot of. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And what I'm hearing and when I'm listening to it, it's almost a testament to like, we say like we don't choose our family, but we choose our family in a sense. Like being able to, and I think that's like sometimes lost a little bit for families who are just separated, to be able to step into this community and really feel held, and also to be surrounded with people who you can trust, like with your child. Like that says so. And I'm getting emotional and I don't even know why. It's the cancer in me. But no, but I think it's just because I think too, like with women, um when you think about postpartum, right? And you think about how women after childbirth feel very isolated. But to be a woman maybe in this community, to be able to feel seen, to feel held, to feel supported, and also know that like if they just maybe need like a little break or a breath, they have their sisters there to help. And with, having children kind of all at the same time or maybe close in age, you're all kind of surrounded, and you either are going through it together, had just gone through it, so you can support, or see, because maybe you are about to have a child of your own, and seeing the support from your sisters, from other women going through just having childbirth. And I think that's beautiful. And I think a lot of that just doesn't happen, a lot in society nowadays. I do know that like some cultures really do rally around like new mothers. Um, but that's beautiful. Like that's, I mean, and for you to just be, you were just born into it, so you don't know any
Me.
other way. Like you,
Well, I think it's interesting because yeah, I think America is, especially white America, is a very isolated place. You don't there is no community in that way. And I grew up in Castro Valley, and if people know, that's like the whitest of the white. That's like scary people. Like that's Castro Valley. So to step into a space where I'm like, okay, I can breathe and I can be me and I can feel safe and I can feel like you know, to look around and be like, okay, that person looks like my dad and that person looks like my mom. Like, that's special. And to know that you have that community, I think it is rare here. Or
Yeah.
over there.
Over there. Yeah. Over there. Here.
And I guess I'm curious, you know, growing up in like in that sort of in that environment, you know, what was, do you remember like maybe the first time that you thought, oh, this is different, like the perspectives or how people, how other kids were with their family or how you saw that?
Yeah, I think once I really noticed it when I got to elementary. And where you start to meet more kids, you know, and it's like, it's the smallest thing. It's like, even how kids play. Like, when I was in the circle, we would always play, and there was always someone to play with. There was no excluding. There was no, you might not want to play with one person, but you could always find someone else to play with. You can always find someone else to hang out with. And play is huge as a kid. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you learn language. That's how you learn culture. Like, so I think
That's amazing because the people I see, they have to learn that. They were never given a chance to play.
Oh yeah.
And what, that's amazing that you recognize that.
Even as a kid, I was like, these little white kids are playing weird. Like, I couldn't understand it. I was like, it was just this weird, like, it's hard to put it into words because for me, it was all feelings. It was, why are they engaging in a play that's so, it kind of felt like I was playing with like adults. Like, they didn't how to relax. And when they did relax, it was often very isolated. It was, that's mine, that's mine. It's, there is no, or it was very, like, there's, I guess, this research that was done that Papa always mentions, that kids of color and white kids often play differently, especially with animals. So when they play with animals, a lot of kids of color will make animal noises. They'll go, you know, the cat food. It's a realistic play, and it's not like they aren't in conversation, but they're in conversation in the way that animals are in conversation. But with a lot of white kids, when they play, it's all humanized. It's like the animals are speaking like how you would speak, and it's often infantilized, like. So that was really bizarre to witness and be like, why does that cow sound like a small child? Like, I don't get it. And it's not like I didn't give my, you know, little toys voices or whatever, but it was all the same voice for other kids. And it just tells a lot about, I don't know, how my relationship with the environment and with animals and with the world. I realized that their world was very isolated. That when they were spoken to as, oh, hey, like, okay, like, we're going to go to the store, and then you speak to a kid, and it's, oh, are you hungry? Or do you want that? I never had to that extent. So that was really bizarre to see kids that kind of would code switch too. Like, they would act dumb in front of adults and then go back to normal in front of kids. And that's just what was normal to them. So I think that was really bizarre to see kids code switch in front of me and be like, you're not that dumb, and you're not that young, and you know more than that. And so that was kind of bizarre. And I think that's why my teachers kind of thought I was a little weird sometimes. I don't know.
Weird or just smarter than them?
I like to think that, but that could just be my ego. Because I remember one time I wore a rainbow t-shirt. He was like, that's gay. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I knew what gay was. I was like, how is this shirt gay? Like, it's not two men kissing on you. Like, what? And then he was like, it has a rainbow, that means it's gay. And I was like, who taught you that? And then he said, my dad. And I was like, oh, well, my dad taught me how to think, not what to think. And my shirt is not gay. As a child. But it was like, it wasn't understood with other kids because so that's what it was. It was very isolating as a kid, kind of, because I didn't really know how to interact with other kids, and it was really confusing because I had like a set of rules in my head that I was like, yeah, this is how the world works. And to meet other kids that were just like, it was like they acted young and they acted dumb and they acted weird and bizarre. It was like they're a caricature of a child, not what a child is. It was bizarre. So I think that was a weird cultural difference, is seeing how other kids engaged with the world, being like, wow, that is not how I engage with the world.
Oh, well, I also think that because in ceremony, kids are given jobs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're given trabajos, and those trabajos mean something. Everything means something. So, I think when kids have a job, you can see that they come to the altar presenting whatever they were, presenting in a very different way, right? And it was so beautiful to watch, and still is, when kids dance, when they're little, when kids work on the altar, when they present to the altar, when they present to elders. It's just a very different way of raising your kids.
And that's what it is. I felt like a young adult. I felt like, oh, I'm just not in, like, I'm becoming an adult. I feel like a lot of times it's more like, okay, you're a kid than an adult. But that's how I never really felt like that. Like, I think when you have a sense of purpose and you're treated and talked to as a young person, not an adult, but a young person, then you learn, okay, more and more I'll gain more responsibilities, more and more. Like I'll become older and older, but that doesn't mean that I childlikeness. Like, you
Right.
learn to engage and play. Like, I still have fun. I still, like, I don't know, I'll go jump around and dance. Like, I know how to have that kid space and that adult space in a way that's not so binary and strict. And you can't play anymore, you're an adult, or you can't do that because you're a kid. Like, that never made sense to me.
Well, and I think that could be too, because now, especially in the United States, right? And some states are so focused on academics. And so they get very rigid on, I mean, let's just face it. The United States starts conditioning, well, and for the majority, I guess, of the world, we start conditioning our children at the age of 5 to get up every morning, go do something for 5 days a week. You clock in, you clock out, you have extra homework, and then you go through 12 years of that, and then you have to go into college. There's always an end goal, and you always have to reach higher and higher. And even, for my children, I have them in a charter school. It's a public charter school. So there's more, you know, they're which I do like. I mean, there's pros and cons, but there's a difference in their grade levels are blended. So they'll have some children that are maybe at the fourth grade level, but then are in third grade at the fourth grade, and so and I appreciate that. They also focus a lot on arts and music, which is great because I think it's so important for children to be able to play and express that. And, and I will say that parenting my older two, and also and with the shift that I've been going through these last few years, my parenting is shifting as well. Like with my older boys, it was like, we need to get to school, we need to do this, we need to go to college. And then honestly, if it wasn't for my husband, I would probably have really pushed my older two to go to college. But my husband was like, they need to figure it out, and not everyone is made to go to college and to fit into this box. And I was like, you're right. But and just letting them explore, because my older boys, love having their hands in the dirt. They love working with their hands. And, you know, my 23-year-old, I think, he's either going to be, 23, 24, something like that. I can't remember. But he'll be 23 next month. Like he does. He's so, the way his mind works and the way he can figure things out just by looking at them is brilliant. Honestly, he kind of like the stories that you tell me, Ari, about your dad. He reminds me of, I think I've said that to you, like reminds me of your dad. Like you can just figure it out. My 20-year-old too. He picked up welding. He works on big machines that like scare me to even look at. And then with, my 11-year-old, it's like he's just kind of finding his way, and I try and pull him out because he loves video games. But I try and give him a break because I do, I recognize that children need to play. They need to be out in the dirt. They need to be experienced. They need to be in community. And my daughter, I am just letting her run as feral can be because we need to, because as women, we are expected to, be a certain way. And we're really not. We are nitty and gritty and gnarly, and we can get our hands dirty. It's okay. Like when she's out playing with the chickens and then she's covered with like dirt and mud. I'm like, okay, just go wash your hands.
Yeah.
But, and it is. So me parenting like the bigs and the littles is definitely changing and shifting, and just allowing them to explore and to be children.
Yeah.
Because that's hard. That's hard nowadays because we are so focused on academics and school and college and how, you have to get this piece of paper in order to get this job and to live this certain way.
Yeah.
And the expectations, the unrealistic expectations of society.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
You know,
hard.
expectations when you're raising children, yes, there's expectations, right? Like, hey, don't get in a car with a stranger, like look both ways before you cross the street.
Right.
Other than that, like the basic expectations, trying to learn how to move um, as your child wants to move, right? I think that was, you know, um, that was a big learning lesson. And so for me, just kind of sitting in front of the altar and just remembering. I mean, I remember, and I even told you, like I had an epiphany one day, and I thought, oh my gosh, if they were my abuelita, I would do anything for them, right? I would do anything for them. And so, why am I doing this for my daughter? Why am I not doing this for my children? Why am I not doing this for my husband? Why am I not doing, why am I not doing this even for myself? Right. And so I think just remembering how, just remembering your connections, honoring the, those people who came before you so that you can then not pass on what is not necessary to pass on, but what to pass on, like those strengths, those joys, those really important lessons, right? And to remember those. And so there was that. And I know that when we've had a hard time, there's been times where I will bring out my smoke and
Mm.
able to talk because it sets a very different tone now. It's right. It's almost like, I don't know about you, but it takes me out of the personal, so I'm able to hear what they have to say because the smoke sets the tone. Now we're in this kind of sacred space with each other so that we're able to communicate through this really hard moment, situation, whatever it is. So that, I mean, that's definitely from ceremony, right?
Yeah.
And definitely, like, I remember when I brought the smoke out and I said, you are no longer responsible for the things that I brought to this moment that no longer, that
Mm.
served you, right? Do you remember that?
Mhm.
And so, how often, like, um, and I don't know, I just thought that was really important. Like, I would have loved for my parents, if they would have known, to have
Yeah.
done me, right? But
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to bring out the smoke and to say, we're gonna heal these generational wounds. We're gonna do it together. That is, I've never heard of anyone doing that with their parents. Like, I've I've never seen that in person, and I think that's really powerful. I think a lot of that is ceremony, and I think a lot of that is just personal work that we've specifically done, you know. But yeah.
And I think, yeah, and I think for me too, like realizing, in having my moments of like feeling like this rage and not knowing where it's coming from, and then realizing, oh, this is something in my DNA, like from maybe 7 generations back, or and carrying that, right? Realizing that it's ancestral rage, and then I don't know, and I can't remember, like, I don't know, maybe if it was a series of events or if it was just over time. I just can remember like looking around me and thinking, I don't want my kids to carry this shit that I'm carrying. Like it was like this something in me saying, I don't want to carry this shit anymore, and I don't want my kids to carry this shit. Like it stops here. And I think that's when, and I can't, and it could be, over the last few years, and maybe this is why I was feeling frustrated and, or stuck, but acknowledging and recognizing that I'm carrying stuff that from generations that came before me, and that it needed to stop. Like I don't want my kids to carry that. And so that's why I burn a lot more smoke. I burn a lot more smoke,
yeah,
and I talk a lot to my daughter. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation, but from what I'm hearing, it was kind of like, for you, it was a way of life, because like you were born into it. And like with Ari, this was just like what you were living. And so it was just like, it was part of raising. But for me, I'm stepping into and I'm reclaiming. So I do find myself like, I just had a conversation with my 11-year-old about um, tobacco, and the difference between cigarettes and tobacco, and how they were used, not cigarettes, but how tobacco was used in ceremony, or how we give offerings to the land of tobacco, and how different it was, and actually showing him a tobacco leaf,
that's
and
that's how it starts.
yeah.
A ceremony for me started with science. And I did a paper on this in school about how you learn a lot of like English, arts, science, math in ceremony. You're
Mm.
counting the pasos. Okay, after every four repeats another four. You know that at the beginning, the first step in the beginning is the same step in the end. But it's also like, um, what the fuck were we talking? Oh, can we curse? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want me to get monetized.
No, no, we're
I'm
we're
all
totally, we're
okay.
feral, we're rogue. We just,
Oh yes, Chingonas y Chisme. No, it's okay. No, yeah, it was.
But even the stars and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
oh, and aligning yourself. You know, the caracoles need to be in the opposite. You know, the drummers need to be like, it's like all very mathematically done. And I remember a big thing too was drugs. Was talking about medicine and drugs, and that was one of the things was tobacco. Because my dad, you know, showed me when I was like 12 or something, around the same age. He was like, when you want to talk to the universe, a lot of times a good medicine to do that with is tobacco.
Mhm.
And I was like, smoke it. And I was like, you smoking tobacco behind my back? And then, and he's like, no, no, no. He's like, I'll have a cigarette maybe once a year. But he's like, a lot of times I just hold it. I just
Mhm.
hold it, have a conversation, and I speak whatever I need to speak, and then I sprinkle it into the earth. And it was it was kind of a revelation, and also it was like, okay, that makes 100% like sense, like that makes sense. Um, but it was more so revelation because there's a lot of shame around like
Yes.
like that, like cigarettes and um smoking. And I remember in school, you know, they do that paper where you're like, I'll never do drugs, and then you sign the paper. And
Dare.
I remember there, and I remember not signing it, and I think that they didn't check. But I remember one of my friends asked, they're like, "Why aren't you signing it? Like, do you want to do drugs?" And I was like, I don't understand the paper.
Yeah.
Like, everything is a, everything is a drug. Like, the
That's
only
right.
difference is like calling some medicine and some drugs. I was like, I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna take an Advil because that's what I'm saying when I sign this paper. I'm not gonna say that I'm not ever gonna take morphine because what if I get my leg broken? And then they put morphine in, right? So it didn't really make sense to me. And I think what is very amazing about ceremony is that you also get a level of education and of understanding and of explanation that a lot of times doesn't come in culture because it's don't talk about it, don't talk about that, don't think about that. But it's like you have to talk about it because if you don't talk about it, you don't understand it. If you don't understand it, then you treat it, and you don't
You treat
respect
it
it.
with ignorance. Let me tell you, that was everything. Because how many times have we talked about the niños, about grandmother, and how people hold that and take it? And you know what? It's because they were never taught.
Because some people really need it. Some people, you know what, they do
Absolutely.
need that. They do need those shrooms to open their mind, but they don't know. So it's this level of shame and oh, you're a stoner, you're this, you're just a. It's like if they were to have a different relationship and a different education with it, they would know how to treat it with respect and also ask for respect. Be like I have no shame with what I do right now, right? Because I know what I'm doing. I know that when I smoke my weed to go to sleep, I'm like, or when I smoke my weed, when I need to think about something, I'm like, yeah, I'm being intentional. I'm using it in the way that it should be used. I'm using it in the way that is with, I don't know, I'm not being unsafe. I'm not being,
Reference.
yeah. And
Reference.
I think that's really, because when
Well,
you,
and I think too, it's also the verbiage, right? I feel as like for me, going into this space with sacred medicine and talking about grandmother or talking about the Niños Santos, but using also like correct terminology because yes, in growing up, right, weed is a bad word, pot is a bad word, dope, all of these words. But when you really get down to the root of it, like, mama coca, that's used in ceremony and that's used in talking circles to really get down to the root cause. But it wasn't until, you know, other man got a hold of it and then started altering it, and then it becomes addictive, right? What and tobacco was and is still used to give offerings to the land, to sit in ceremony, to use as medicine. And it's all the verbiage. A blood pressure medication can be a medicine, but it also can be a drug. I have had people overdose on their blood pressure medication than making it a lethal drug. They
Yeah.
lost their life.
Yeah.
So it's all about terminology. And for me, I try to, because there is so much stigma around the word psychedelics, the word mushrooms or psilocybin, cannabis, weed, that I think lately I've just been taking a very as a matter of a fact approach, like whether I'm using the word psilocybin, Nino Santos, like or even like cannabis, because yes, cannabis, it can be used as a medicine, as a healing medicine, right? There is a drug called, or a medication, a synthesized medication, I will say that, called Marinol. Marinol is a synthesized derivative of cannabis given to cancer patients to increase appetite and decrease nausea.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't we just give them
Yeah.
actually
Exactly.
grown from Mother Earth?
Right.
There's disconnection. And I feel like that they want this disconnection. Like when you were talking about how, like, the way that you notice that, like, um, Western civilized children play, there's a disconnection. Um, you know, and that could be children that are white and bodied, or even children of color that have grown up in a very colonized, westernized way.
Absolutely.
Um, there's just, it's the disconnection that we have, and I think that we're being called back to that connection. Um, but yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but
Well,
it's all.
I think that when you're talking about, coming into this space and reclaiming, and you have the children, you are their example of how to be, right? When you explain the tobacco and you tell stories, stories, your lineage, stories about your family, that's all part of it. That is the main thing. Ceremony, there is a story, there's lineage. Um, you know, so that is the first and foremost thing to teach your children are those stories. When you talk about the stories of how, you know, Earth was created, how the birds, were created, all those kind of creation stories, that's all part of ceremony. That
Mm.
gives the children a different perspective of how to look at things. Now you know why Peacock lost his voice. And even though he's grand, remember that story? Oh, what a great story.
Let's tell it.
I can't.
Okay.
No, I do. I do remember it. Unfortunately, modern technology is telling me my battery's about to die. So that's fun. But I love that story. And one day I will tell that story because it's a beautiful story about the ego.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before your battery dies, then we'll kind of wrap up.
Okay.
And anything that you want to talk about, maybe that's coming up, any final thoughts?
Yes, actually,
Floor
I'm
is
excited.
yours.
And this will be the first time I'm telling it. I know. So, we're having a ceremony retreat in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we're going to be there. Thank you. February 6th to 10th. Hosted here in my home. It's a space, it's a very, very small space, a group of people. Um, and it's really coming back to reconnecting, either starting that journey of that reconnection and kind of healing those deep rooted wounds,
Mm-hmm.
um, or supporting you in a way like, yes, you're not alone. And and I know what you're talking about, and let's help you get a little further down the road. Wait a minute. We have 2 spaces open. We just got somebody who donated, and we are able to, and I hope I say this without crying,
I'm
we are
getting
able to, I know, offer one of the spaces for free. And I'm only offering that to LGBTQ plus or BIPOC first. So we can't get your plane ticket, but the whole retreat will be free for somebody. They just need to,
beautiful.
you
Okay.
just need to reach out to me. I'm fearless.fem. Um, life life at Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can message Chingona and Chisme, and Carmen will pass your information to me. But I'm so excited for that, for the
Yes.
donor.
Yes. And yes, I am going to be there. I'm going to be supporting you, and I am so honored to be able to do that. Like, honored that you asked me, and I'm really looking forward to that. I really am. I
Yeah.
really am. Yeah, I really am.
Do you have anything to say?
Merry Christmas.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
All righty then.
No, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. And I would love to come back.
Oh, of course. And then when I'm there in February, we will also make another epic trip back up the Cajon instead of taking the Uni,
Yeah.
and be huffing and puffing and laughing and wanting to go back down to take the Funi up. We had a
About it.
great time. But yeah,
Good.
so yes, follow Ari at Femme Fearless Life.
Nope.
No,
But
Fearless Femme.
fearless.fem.life. I had to learn that.
I know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm calling you anyway. Yes.
It's
And then you can follow Chingonas y Chisme on Instagram, and also I am also Sovereign Alchemista. So find us all on IG, and until next time, thank you guys for another amazing episode. It's always great, and we'll be talking soon.
okay.
Bye.
Sounds great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.